Now let's welcome in Indiana head coach Archie Miller to the 24/7 Sports Series Social Distance. Arch, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Evan. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So what is occupied majority of your time during the quarantine? Or are you a Netflix guy, a reader? What's Archie Miller up to?
Well, I tell you, you have to start getting creative. You know, each week you take on a new hobby, it seems. But you try to stay busy with your own staff. You try to stay busy with your players, but you definitely have a lot more downtime. And Netflix series or Amazon Prime series, you start naming them. I've watched them, and we pretty much exhausted all of the television opportunities. You have to move on to something new here.
What was what's been the favorite so far?
I've had a lot of good ones. Some ones that just had. I finished 6 seasons of Bosch on
Okay.
Amazon Prime, and that was pretty good. 000 is one of my favorite series on Amazon Prime. I don't know if that one's been out there, but
I haven't
the
seen
usual, the usual suspects out there have been able to catch up on a lot of the documentaries, a lot of the Netflix docu-series. Obviously, The Last Dance has occupied the last 3 or 4 weekends. You try to check that out, but try to stay busy. It's not just sitting at home watching TV.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you about The Last Dance. What's kind of been your takeaway from the first, I guess, 8 episodes?
Just that's my time. That was my time. Just like a lot of generational people. Jordan was my grade school, childhood, middle school, and then as he finished up his run. I was in college and then finishing up in college. When he started to do that stuff. So obviously big Bulls follower. In the deal, and it's been good just because I think that basketball's missing. Number one. So obviously you get your fix there. But for me to go back and watch, the guys tell the stories and to watch the games, he was just so dominant and so polarizing as a basketball figure. It's almost crazy to think that so much time has went by, and
Yep.
then as you start to watch it again, it almost feels like it's happening right now. Like it doesn't feel like, boy, that was a long time ago. Now I'm sure that for the younger generations, the Kobe guys and now the LeBron guys, everyone's getting sort of their look. But it's an awesome thing to follow, just because if you are a basketball person, or if you sort of grew up in that Bulls wave of the 90s, which I did, it's great to go back and think about all the stuff.
It's been really cool to see his outlook and his mentality and just like how driven he was to win. I think that's probably been one of my biggest takeaways. And I feel like everybody has like a Jordan moment or a Jordan story. Do you have one that pops into mind, or a time, I don't know if you've met him or anything like that, but through your basketball circles, but is a moment or story about him stick out to you?
No, I've never really come across or run into that circle of being able to like say, hey, there's a unique individual story. But for me, watching his last game, to watch the last shot, which hasn't come up on the documentary yet, but
Right.
watching that live with my college teammates in college at the time in the summer, being in the dorm room with 8 or 9 guys watching the finals and watching him make that shot, it was just like almost like it was fixed. You couldn't make it up how good it was. But those times are so different. They're so much more isolated on islands and so much more territorial with their own careers. The day and age of the NBA now not being as friendly just seems long ago. But the rivalries and the Pistons rivalries and some of those games with the Jazz and whatnot, you go back, it was a different time in the league. It was so much more like territorial, so much more mano and mano, it seemed. But it's a lot of fun to watch. The last 2 will be done. It's been really well done, and just to hear him talk is something cool.
Yeah, it's created a lot of debate too. I got like 100 text messages on my group text literally right now, debating on who's the best player of all time and how they rank. It's I don't know. It's been fun to see.
Yeah, I think what I love the fact that when guys start to argue now, you start to go back and say, could this guy play in this generation, or could this guy play in this generation? Let me just tell you that, like, LeBron could play in any generation that was ever invented. And believe me, Michael Jordan could play in any generation that was ever invented. And but like Bruiser Flint's on my staff.
Yeah.
He goes back into he starts talking about the Celtics and the Sixers and the Lakers, and that's a little before, even my time. But how much different the game was then than now is it just a very different deal. When you start to look at like the Pistons series and overcoming that series and like what they were going through, this
Right.
day and age, the game's completely different. It's played differently. It's called differently, but it's evolved. And I think that just in general, though, you look at how special those talents are. Whether it be Durant or whether it be LeBron or even Kobe. I mean, they're all going to go through their own journeys, and they'll all look back. You're going to do a documentary on LeBron one day. I mean, it's just some of the greatest of all time.
For sure. I know one of the things that I know that some coaches are doing during this downtime is getting together with other coaches and talking philosophy and trying to learn from each other. I understand you're doing something similar. Who have you kind of been talking to throughout this process, and well, I guess what have you learned from it?
Yeah, it's been unique. I think college coaches, when the season ends, you get so entrenched into your recruiting and your travel, and then your own teams that you don't spend that much time with other coaches. Or if you do, it's sort of like a retreat. You get together with a group of guys on a weekend and maybe
Right.
you do it one time. This Zoom phenomenon has now taken off, and I think that it's become much more convenient and comfortable to just talk about basketball. And you can get any number of guys just to get on the call wherever they are. It could be halfway around the world. And been able to communicate with my brother, obviously Sean. We talk a lot about basketball. The Van Gundy brothers have been great in jumping on things and just talking about the game more so than anything, and evolving it and learning it. Spent some time with Chris Mack. Spent some time with Joe Pasternak as well. We've spent some time with some overseas coaches, being able to jump on calls later at night. And, you try to do as many as you can. And then I think as you've done them, you've gotten a lot out of them, so you want to do more. And I think that'll continue to probably be a part of sort of this new routine, is just talking basketball. Like I think I told you before we got started, I've probably spent more time talking basketball with other coaches in the last 8 weeks than I have in the last 8 years, just because you have some time, and
Right.
now technology is allowing you to do a lot more.
These calls, is it more X's and O's oriented? Is it philosophy or how you handle your team, or
I
what?
think everything. I think everything. I've asked a lot of different questions about recovery time and travel. The Big Ten's unique. We're one of the only league that has 4 television partners. So we're like the only league in the country that plays every night of the week.
Right.
And a lot of leagues are on rotations on Thursday, Saturday, or Big Monday. When the Big Ten's really playing, you could have a routine of games on a Friday to a Tuesday to a Saturday, and just learning more about recovery and travel. I mean, that's been played into it. Obviously, X's and O's plays a big part of it on schemes and some new philosophies that are now entering the college game that are different. You're constantly trying to evolve your own system.
Right.
And then I think, the big thing is I'm having an opportunity to address, our own personnel a little bit. What would other guys do with personnel that looks like this, or groupings of players on offense and defense that like this? Who's doing well with certain types of teams? So it's been good, and everybody has had a lot of fun with it. There's been some great stories.
I bet. Obviously, you mentioned Sean, your brother. He's had a big impact on your basketball career. Your father's had a big impact on your basketball career. Outside of those two guys, is there anybody that you'd point to as kind of a mentor, or someone that you've been able to really like take stuff from and kind of add to your coaching repertoire?
Well, I've been really fortunate to be around the best, in my opinion. I played for and worked for Herb Sendek.
Yeah.
Um, you look at the laundry list of people that have come through the last 25 years that have spent time with Herb. Their success stories are, legendary, and he teaches you a lot about the business aspect of how to run an office and how to just do your daily job with the grinder mentality.
Yeah.
I took a lot from him, but Thad Matta played a big role in how you think. It's just when you think about his 13 years in the Big Ten, 2 Final Fours, 5 Big Ten titles, and you start to look at the players that came through Ohio State in his time there, and now being in the Big Ten, to feel that every night grind, to do what he did at the level he did it is incredible. He's a Hall of Famer in my opinion, but his approach is so much different, than a lot of guys. He takes a great deal of pride in the development of his own staff and his own team, but he really does it on an individual basis. He really tries to care for the mood, the mentality, and the culture that's created is about one of which everyone wants to be around each other a lot. And
Right.
that's, you try to obviously build that in, but those two guys I spent a lot of time with. Darren Horn gave me an opportunity to get into the business as a full-time assistant coach at Western Kentucky back like a long time ago. And what a great basketball opportunity, school, place. So Darren actually broke me into the business, and I'm always grateful for him. And just getting, you know how it is. You got a lot of answers until you start to get out there on your own. And,
Right.
just get out there on my own and learn a few things. So even the assistant coaches that I've been alongside my whole time, guys that have done great things with the game, but have impacted in a lot of ways. So I've been fortunate.
For sure. I want to switch gears a little. Obviously, recruiting is a big topic right now. You guys weren't allowed to be out in the spring. The NABC came out yesterday recommending that the dead period be extended till July 31st. When you heard that, what was kind of your initial reaction, and how do you go about recruiting during this time?
Well, I think the first thing, Evan, is it's the right thing to do. I think every college coach and every player, yourself, we would all love to be out there, doing our normal routine, evaluating, traveling, and watching kids play. The kids want to be out there playing. But right now, that's not smart and that's not safe. And I think as much as the game and the pressure of being able to do what you want to do plays a role in it, take a step back and to let some things play out. It's a good move. You can be effective in the new model as well. There's a lot more communication going on with kids and their families. There's a lot more of these opportunities that have now been presented that can work to your advantage if you use them right. You spend more time face to face. I think as much doing this as you're doing it. You're not getting the overall volume of evaluations. You're not getting the ability to see that kid you saw for the first time maybe right now in the spring. But that plays a role into how well you do your job on a daily basis year round, and I think that if you're ahead of the game and you're working your plan, you should have a pretty good feel for what you're trying to do and who you want and what you need. But you're just going to have to do it in a different way.
I think it's interesting, and you mentioned the Zoom calls you've had with other coaches, and obviously you're using them from a recruiting standpoint. I don't know how many schools did that previously, and I feel like it may be something that guys moving forward start to utilize a little more with these kids, because there's a lot that you can show them, whether it be video and presentations, and I don't know what your all's presentations look like, but it seems like I wouldn't be surprised if it's something that you guys utilize a little more often moving forward.
No question about it. I think it's one of the great, if you ever take good things out of a bad situation, to me, it's one of the great silver linings of all this is how you can do a really good job communicating with kids and their families by not just picking up the phone and saying hello.
Right.
That face-to-face interaction is something I think everybody covets because that's when you're at your best in front of people. And this is just a different way of doing it. But in today's day and age, with how sophisticated young people are with technology and whatnot, you can make the same impact, in my opinion. And I think that, for our staff and what we've done and how we tried to do it is we've tried to replace the in-person visit with the Zoom visit.
Right.
And it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I will say this, to me, it's been a real positive. I mean, it has. You've been able to really show things. You've been able to bring things to the table that you can watch together. You can talk, ask questions together. You can have a lot of people in the setting as well, that maybe couldn't make a trip to the campus the first time you made them. So, I mean, there's some real value to it. I love it. I think that there's a place, obviously, for the in-person, and there's a place for the guys visiting the campus. You can't put a price on that touch. But to me, this is just another way to add value to your ability to brand yourself, your staff, how you do things. And it's been a really, it's been a bright spot. I think it's going to be something we use. I think most people, maybe you'd probably be the one that would even have a little bit more expertise in this, but maybe overseas, I think people have tried to do this a little bit more just because you're never going to be able to get there as much. But in this day and age, I think kids are comfortable being on video screens, and everybody being in the same situation of not being able to go to school and having to do virtual learning and be able to do classes like this. It just seems like everybody's pretty much seamless being able to handle it.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's on their phone all the time anyways. So might as well jump on. We're talking recruiting, and you signed 3 straight Mr. Basketballs out of the state of Indiana. Romeo Langford, Trace Jackson Davis, and now Anthony Leal. Brought in a couple other in-state guys this year too. How important has it been for you, especially during these times, is to focus and lock in on the state of Indiana and really try to go out and get the best players in the state?
I think it's priority one for us at Indiana upon coming here. Our in-state, stockpile, we didn't have it. And I think moving forward, our deal was to try and really, number one, do a great job of being able to not only identify, recruit, and bring the guys from the state that you want to campus, but don't just do it one time. I mean, make this part of like the everyday approach. And, the Big Ten, in my opinion, is a blueprint footprint league. You look at the best players in our league over the last 25 years and the schools they went to and where they've come from. They've gotten in the car, go to that school most of the time.
Right.
And Indiana is blessed with a great state of basketball, with great players and coaches. And if we can get the best here, to me, we can have one of the best teams in the country. And it's not easy, it's not easy at all, to say the least. But, we've started the ground up. I think in our first class, we had 3 guys from the state, Romeo being one of them. And then we followed that up with Trace, and now 2 more in our current signing class. And I think as we keep moving forward, that's going to be a big deal. I think at the end of the day, if you're in the NFL, I don't know how many guys or what the magic number is, but half your team should be from the state of Indiana at least.
For sure. And one of those guys we were just talking about, Trace Jackson Davis, he's already announced that he's coming back for his sophomore year, a guy that was ranked really highly coming out of high school. What type of jump do you think he can make next season? And do you foresee using him any differently than you did last year? What's kind of your plan of attack with him?
Well, Trace is the first guy we really ever recruited for a long period of time here. And first thing I can tell you about him is, number one, he's an unbelievable kid. And he loves Indiana. And I think part of him coming back, as much as it is coming back to get better and whatnot, I think he loves where he's at. So that's a positive. I think if you're having a great experience, the chances of enjoying where you're at and getting better go up. But he's going to make a big jump. To me, he should be an All-American next year. He should contend for a lot of different type of accolades individually. But the thing that we've talked about the most, and he knows this, is the impact of wins and losses is going to carry him the furthest. With team success, he's going to get a lot of credit on the individual stuff, and he knows that. But he's driven right now. He's driven to show more. We're going to have to put him in a lot of different types of situations. I think using him a little differently all over the floor because he does have more skill set and he does have more ability as a playmaker for a big kid than he probably was able to show as a freshman. I think that he'll be able to do that as a sophomore. And then, just getting the game under your belt. He played in a league this year that was as good as any league, maybe in the last 10 years in terms of depth.
Right.
And it was also a league that also had great size. He played against a lot of older, big guys that were physical, deal. So he got that under his belt now. And that jump alone from experience, playing 30 minutes a game, being all conference, to me as a freshman in this league, that experience level alone should carry him in terms of development. But he's got to work on it a little bit. He's got some things he's got to do, which I think every player, has those aspirations. But I think the great thing about Trace is he's a great teammate. He's humble. And more importantly than anything, he's very aware of winning, how much it matters in the big scheme of things. And he has that. I think a lot of the individual stuff can happen. But to me, if it's a perfect world, if he came back and great things happen, our team success goes up. but he should be right there knocking on the door for a lot of individual stuff.
Yeah, no question. He's a big time talent. Arch, I appreciate your time, man. I got one last question for you. I know in the past you've done some ratings of journalists and how they can hedge ball screens. Well, where do you think I stack up on that list?
You're definitely better than Rab Johnson. I can tell you that much right now. That's just on an eye test. You know, the eye test thing. I just look at the two people and I say, I'm going to rate you higher than him on that. There's some other guys in your business that may get the nod in terms of being able to do it, but maybe that's just something we should do out here on the road when we get back together, get a group of people and just run out there and just start hedging and jumping and doing all kinds of stuff. See which one of you guys can get the 5-star status.
Defense was never my thing. It was more of catch and shoot.
Me either. Me and you. We've been getting 2-on-2 team.
Well, Arch, I appreciate your time, man. I'll let you get back to the Amazon Primes and the Netflix and the Zoom calls, man. Thank you.
Evan, appreciate it, man. Thanks.